Hey guys, everyone. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Um, Welcome everybody. Let's wait for some minutes so that others can join us. Breonna, I'm fine. How are you too? Shulamite, I can see you. Victoria, I can see you. Philip, I can see you. Akande, I can see you. Oyeleye, I can see you. That's great, Breonna. So let's give everyone some minutes so that we can have um, quite some number of people around before we start. Chimobi, I can see you. How you doing? Omotoyosi, I can see you. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Farida, I can see you. Okay. We are supposed to start. We are supposed to start by 7. So this is 7:01. Let's wait for three or 4 minutes. If you can hear me, if you have joined and you can hear me, just say hello in the chat box. Just say hello in the chat box because I can see some private messages from some people saying they can't hear me and that I haven't joined the chat, the session. Amirat, welcome. Okay, X, welcome. Let's wait for 2-3 minutes before we can start. Okay, that's good if you can hear me. So yesterday we looked at the basics of HTML, which is understanding what HTML is all about, and also we got to learn about tags in HTML. And like I mentioned yesterday, you learning about tags means that you have covered 60 to 70% of what HTML is all about, because that is the structure of HTML. HTML is all about tags. It's all about tags. So what we are going to look at today is how we can function or how we can structure a web page with HTML tags. That's what we are going to look at today. So at this point, I'll share my screen, and when I do, if you can see my screen, you can tell me so that I'll know that everything is on point. If you can see my screen, you can just let me know in the chat box that you can see my screen. All right, that's great. That's great. So today, what we are going to do is this. We are going to see how to use HTML to build this basic stuff that I just created in Figma. And as you can see, there is no color, no design, nothing whatsoever. It's just basic web page structure. Now, like I mentioned also, CSS is what we are going to use to add colors, make the alignment better, structure everything the way we want them to be structured. But since we haven't talked about CSS yet, I want us to really understand HTML, because CSS will be functional on top of HTML. So that's what we are going to look at today. So I'll zoom in to this point so that everyone can see clearly. So let's say this is a website that we want to replicate with just HTML. All of this is the web page with this form. Yeah, we are going to see how to do that with all we learned yesterday. So first things first, like I mentioned, you create a project folder, because you trying to write HTML means that you want to create a website project. So you need to create a project folder on your desktop, preferably on your desktop or any location that you are okay with. In my case, I'll do that on my desktop. So I'll go to my desktop, I'll create a new folder here, and I'll call that folder, let's just say structure. I'll call mine structure. Now I have created the folder here on my desktop. Yeah, I'll then launch my VS Code, which is my Visual Studio Code. I'll launch it. When I launch it, what I'll do is I'll click on File. Yeah, then I'll click on Open Folder. When I click on Open Folder, I'll go to my desktop where I created and saved that structure folder, which is my project folder. I would go to the desktop and I would select the folder. In my case, it is structure. This is it here. I would click on structure and I would click on select folder. That's the first step. The first step is create your project folder and open the project folder in VS Code. And we have achieved that just now. Now, you may have this message, this get started message here. What you do is come here and click on this X icon here to close it, just like this. And that's that. So I would hide this live streaming stuff here. That's not part of HTML. I'll just hide it. Now, at this stage, we have launched our folder, our project folder in VS Code. The next thing to do is to create a HTML file. Now, how do we create the HTML file? Come here on the left side. You'll see that on the left side, I have the name of my project folder showing up there. It is called structure. That's what I created on my desktop. So I would hover on the name of my project folder. You'll see that there is an icon that shows up when I put my mouse on top of the project folder name. Now, this icon here is the new file icon. You click on it if you want to create a new file. And that's what we want to do. We want to create a new HTML file. So I would click on it. When I click on it, I would write the name of the HTML file that I want to create for my website. So I would call this first page index.html. When I type in index.html, I would press the enter key on my keyboard, and that HTML file will be created. Now, is everyone following to this point? Do I have to explain any other thing? I hope this is clear so far. Cool. That's great. I'm just having response from one person. Is that cool with everyone? Okay then. Now, after creating the HTML file, yeah, the next thing to do is to create your HTML boilerplate, and we all saw how to do that yesterday. So to create the boilerplate, hold down your Shift key and press the number 1 key on your keyboard for the exclamation sign to show up. Now, when this sign shows up, press the Tab key on your keyboard, and your HTML boilerplate will be created. Now, when the HTML boilerplate is created, the next thing to do is to come here and change the title of your website. Remember, I mentioned what this title tag does in the head section of our website. It is the title that creates this light hall or this job board design here. So we need to create ours. So I'll change this. By default, HTML calls it document. So by default, I would take the default value there, which is document, and I'll type in mine. So I can say structure website. You can call yours whatever you want to call it. my website, my pet website, whatever is okay. When you type that in, you Control S to save. Now, the next thing will be for us to start building this website that we have here. Now, this is the body of our website. So we need to create a text like this, create this button, create all of these. That's what we need to do. And remember, I said yesterday that for you to create anything on a website with HTML, all you need to do is use the tag meant for that element. Use the tag meant for that particular thing you want to create. Now, to create a text like this, we need to use the heading text in HTML, which is the heading tag. We need to use that to create something like this. So how do we do that? I would come here. I would come in the body section of HTML. Take note, in between this opening body tag and this closing body tag, I would come in between and I would create a heading. I would create a heading tag. So I can create heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, or heading 6. In this case, since I want the biggest heading text, I would create a heading 1 tag. Now I'll type H1 and I'll press the tab key. That's another shortcut that you can use to create a tag in HTML. Just to avoid you holding down your shift key, pressing the less than sign, typing H1 and pressing the greater than sign. Instead of doing this, you can just actually type the name of the tag. In this case, it is H1. When you type H1, press the tab key on your keyboard. It will automatically convert that H1 that you just typed to a H1 HTML tag. Now I have created the tag. What do I need to create next? I need to create the content, which is blog of the century. Now I'll come here, I'll type in blog of the century, and I'll save that. Now it is time for me to preview this little efforts in the browser as a website. To do that, I would right click on the VS Code and I'll click on Open with Live Server, and it will be launched. This is it here, blog of the century. So if you have any problems to this point, Chimaobi, yes, you are good to go. So if you have any problems to this point, you can let me know. But if you don't have any problems to this point, say yes in the chat box so that we can proceed from here. Okay, then that's cool. It means everyone is following. Live server, hope the name is live server. Abayomi, okay, I would do the recap eventually. Just follow. I'll definitely do the recap. So now this is it here, blog of the century. Now we have created that. What do we need to create next? We need to create this lorem ipsum text that is like a paragraph text or like an article text. In my case, I would use a paragraph text to create this because this is not an article actually. Articles are not this short. Articles are longer than this. So I would use a paragraph text to create this. So it's just going to be a lorem ipsum text. So what do I do? Now I would come under this H1 tag. Take notes, you won't create your paragraph text inside the H1 tag. You would come outside of it. In this case, I am under the H1 tag. This is the opening H1 and the closing H1. I would come under here and I would create a paragraph tag so that I can use the paragraph tag to create that paragraph text. So to create a paragraph tag, I would press the P key on my keyboard, which is meant for paragraph. Then I would press the tab key on my keyboard. Now, if this shortcut is too complex for you, go ahead and do it the normal way we have been doing it, which is by pressing the less than sign key, typing in P, pressing the greater than sign key, and you'd have the tag created. Now, how do we create our lorem ipsum text? In between the opening paragraph tag and the closing paragraph tag, I'll type in the lorem keyword. So I'll say lorem, then I'll type in the number of lorem words that I want HTML to generate for me. In this case, I would want it to generate, let's say, 100. When you type in 100, press the tab key on your keyboard, and 100 dummy words. 100 dummy lorem ipsum words will be generated. Now, if I save this and I go back to my website, which is my browser, you'll see that I have this here. This has been added. So far, I have this section created, this section and this section. Now let's create a button that says read more. Now to create a button that says read more, can you guys hear me? Can you hear me clearly? Someone just said that I am cracking. Okay. All right then. So to create a button that says read more, we will use the button tag in HTML. The thing is all about tags. So to create that button, take note, if you come here, you would see that the button is under this paragraph, right? This button is under this paragraph. That's how we will structure it in VS Code. We will keep at this paragraph. This is our paragraph. This is the opening paragraph tag and the closing paragraph tag. So for the button for we to place our button, we will come under the paragraph tag and we will create a button tag. Now to create a button tag in HTML is simple. Press the less than sign, type button, then press the greater than sign, and the button tag will be created. Now, when the button tag is created, what you need to create next is the button text. What text do you want to display on the button? In my case, I want to display read more. So I'll just type read more in between the opening button tag and the closing button tag. When I save that and I go back to browser, you'll see that I have the read more button here. So we have been able to create this, and create this. So is that clear to everyone? Okay then, and also I hope everyone is typing along and learning along. That way you can actually learn faster. But if you can't learn along, no problem. I think by next week or so, I would find time to get the recording and I would upload the recording so that you can practice over and over again. But there is need for you to practice as I am teaching currently. So the next section of this static page we are creating is this blog of the century without a button. But as you can see here, the text here is an italicized paragraph text. This is not italicized, but this is italicized. So how do we create that? Now, instead of me to go and start creating this from scratch, I would come here, I would copy this, right? I would copy this without the button. I would highlight it, then Control C to copy, and go outside of the button. I'll leave this button. I would come here and I would paste it. And I would save. Now, when I paste it and I come here in the browser, you'll see that I have this here and this lorem ipsum text, but this lorem ipsum text is not italicized yet. Now, the question is, how do we italicize it so that it looks like what we have here? So I would come here. To do that, I would type in, I would just come behind P, behind the opening paragraph tag. I'll type in EM, just like this. Take note. I'll type in EM, the opening EM tag. I'll just type in only EM here. EM here. Then after the closing paragraph tag, I'll type in /EM, which is the closing EM tag. And when I come here, it will be italicized. Now, let's go back to the code so that I can explain that. Now, what I did is this. I wanted to create a paragraph where the paragraph text will be italicized. So to do that, I will use the EM tag in HTML that italicizes words. So this is the EM tag. Now, when I write the EM tag, after the opening EM tag, opening paragraph tag, before I paste the paragraph text, then I will close the paragraph tag and then close the EM tag. Now, EM stands for emphasis. Emphasis. Now, in HTML, it is believed that when you italicize letters or you italicize words, you can use that to create an emphasis to the reader of the words. Like, as you can see, this looks different. So having words stay different can be used to lay emphasis on what the readers are reading. So can everyone, is everyone following? Is that clear to everyone? Okay, someone just asked, what will happen if we switch the positions? Now, I like that. Let's make it practical. Let's switch positions. So I'll come here. I'll take out the EM there. Then I would write EM here. And I would come here. I'll take out the EM here. And I'll write the EM here. Now let's save. And let's go back to our browser. You can see that it is still italicized. Now, switching the position won't make the effect different. Switching it won't make the effect different. Now, that's how you actually get the engineering part behind all of this. That's actually a very brilliant question. Fix things and break things to see how things really work. Now, someone asked, can we make it a bold text? Yes, you can make it a bold text. Now, to make a text bold in HTML, you can use the strong tag. I can say strong here and say strong there and come here and say strong. When I save that and I go back to the browser, you'll see that it is bold. The text is now bold. So someone is saying, how do we know which commands to use for changing the font style? Okay, I am not changing the font styles. I am just making the font to be italicized. That's why we are using the EM tag. And that will be only used if you want to make the text to be italicized. Someone is saying, Rue is saying, is there going to be an advanced intermediate level of this? Okay, this won't have Bootstrap actually. Bootstrap will be up later, most likely on my YouTube channel. But this session is for UI UX designers who wish to add HTML and CSS to their resume, because most companies these days are actually requesting that UI UX designers have knowledge of HTML and CSS. And if you check many job postings out there today in Europe and in America, most companies are actually requesting for HTML and CSS knowledge. So that's the purpose of this session, just to have everyone caught up to speed with HTML and CSS. So, okay, someone is saying, what if the text is an original text? Can you copy it from some other place? Yes, you can. So I can come here. Let's take this out. Let's take this lorem ipsum out. Now, take note of this structure. I have strong, opening strong tag first. Remember, strong tag is to make the text bold. I have the paragraph tag here, which is to create a paragraph text, and I have the EM tag, which is used to create emphasis. In other words, to italicize the text. So in between is where I would paste my text. All of these are the closing tags for all of these opening tags. So I can come here. Let's go to Google. Let's just type in text in Google. Let's copy this text from Wikipedia here. and let's go to our HTML document and let's paste it in between this set of opening tags and this set of closing tags. If I save this and I go back to my browser, you'll see that I have that text that I copied from Google and pasted here. So I hope that's clear. That question was asked by Farida. So I hope that's clear, Farida. Okay, then. That's cool. How do we know which tags to use apart from the normal tags you taught us yesterday? Now, that's why I want us to build something like this so that you would see many tags. And actually, when you don't know which tag to build, yeah, or which tag to use, when you don't know which tag to use, this is what to do. Go on Google and type which HTML tag is used to create images. For example, when you do that, you'll see, and you must see an explanation from HTML. As you can see, it says, in order to put a simple image on a web page, we use the img element. This is an empty element, meaning that it has no text content or closing tag. Just know that this is the tag you will use. Now, whatever you want to create on your website and you don't know which tag to use, go to Google directly and Google that, and just Google that stuff out. You must definitely see a result on how you can create what you want to create. Now, I want to point out something. If you notice here, this is called img element here, but I have been calling mine tag so far. Now, tags and elements are most times used in place of each other. Now, let me explain this. H1 like this. If I just have H1 there with no content, you can call this H1 tag. But when I have like a content in between, like this, you can refer to all of these as a H1 element. Sometimes when you don't even have a content in between the H1 tags, but you have a H1 opening and closing tag created like this, some people refer to it as H1 element. You can refer to it as H1 tag or H1 element, whichever is okay. So don't get confused with that. Now, are there any questions, or we can just proceed? Okay, hope I'm going to get to that later. So should we proceed with building this design? Okay, then fine. So we have created this and we have created this, right? So let's go ahead and let's create this section here that says list of countries. So for this list of countries, this is like a title. You know, when you want to have a list, sometimes you always create a title for the list, like list of shopping items, list of clothes, or all of that. So we need to create a title here. So I will use the H3 tag, the heading 3 tag, to create this title that is list of countries. So I'll come here, take notes. I am here. I would say H3, and I would say list of countries. When I save these and I go to my browser, you'd see I have this here that says list of countries. Now I would write down my list of countries here. And like what we learned yesterday, to create a list in HTML, you need to use an ordered list or an unordered list. So in this case, I'd like us to use an unordered list, because what we have here is an unordered list. It's not numbered. So we need to use an unordered list. So how do I do that? I would first of all create the unordered list, which is UL. I would say UL just like this. When I type in UL, let me go back, let me do that once more. When I type in UL and I have the closing UL tag here, I'll keep my mouse cursor in between these two tags and I would press the enter key on my keyboard so that this space can be created in the middle here, and I would have this UL here and this UL here. just in case you are wondering how I did that. Now it is time for me to create my list items because I have created an unordered list, and it is normal that lists must have items on them. So to create a list item or to create list items for this unordered list, I would have the list item tag created. Now, what do we have here? We have Namibia, America, Canada, Nigeria, and Saudi. So I would say Namibia, then I'll create another list item. Now, all you do is you can copy this, come to the next line and paste it. Remember, still inside the opening unordered list and the closing unordered list. Take note. Now, when you paste it, you come here and you change Namibia to America. Now, if copying and pasting is stressful, to duplicate a list, keep your mouse cursor at the end of this list here that you want to duplicate from. Keep your mouse cursor at the end here, click on it so that it can be blinking. When it is blinking, hold down your Shift key and your Alt key. If you are using a Mac, it's your Shift key and your Options key. Now, when you hold that down, press the down arrow key on your keyboard and your list will be duplicated just like that. Now, when it is duplicated, you can come here and change this from America to Canada. You can change this from America to Nigeria. Then you can duplicate this once more and change that from Nigeria to Saudi. I think it's Saudi Arabia. Just like that. Now, when I save that and I go back to my browser, you'll see that I have my list of countries created. Is everyone following? Okay, Breonna says I should repeat the shortcut. Okay. I'll repeat the shortcut. Now, to duplicate a list item, keep your mouse pointer, like your mouse here, at the end of what you want to duplicate. Now, this is what I want to duplicate. So I would bring my mouse pointer here and I would click here. When I click here, which is the end, you'll see that my mouse cursor is blinking. The pointer is blinking. Now, as it is blinking, hold down the Shift key on your keyboard and press, and also hold down the Alt key. So hold down Shift and Alt. If you are using a Mac, it's Shift and Options. When you hold it down, then press the down arrow key on your keyboard and it will be duplicated just like that. So I hope that was clear. Breonna, additional is that's clear. Okay, and Farida says it was. Okay, that's great. So let's continue with our Jeremiah, welcome. Jeremiah, welcome. So let's continue with our let's continue with building what we are supposed to build. Now we need to create an image here. Now this image has a title. It says image of the world. It says image of the world. So we are going to create that. So let's create a title for the image first. Let's come outside of our unordered list. Then let's use a heading 3 tag also to create that image title. So I would say H3, then I would say image of the world. When I save that and I come here, you see I have image of the world here. Now let's place our image here. Now, yesterday, most of us had problems with placing images here. So today I'll just use an image from Unsplash. So I would go to Unsplash. I would get an image from Unsplash. I can just come here. Let's go with any image at all. Let's go with this one here. So I'll go with this image. Okay, I'm not supposed to download that. I would click on the image. I would right click on the image, click on open image in new tab. Then I would come here, I would copy this link. Yeah. Then I would go to my HTML file. Now to place an image in the website, I would go to a new line and I would create the image tag. I would say img space / and the greater than sign. Now I have created my image tag. The next thing to do is to add attributes to the image tag so that the website or HTML can know where to get the image from. So how do I do that? I would come here after img inside the tag. I would create the source attribute, which is src. When I type in src, I would press the enter key on my keyboard. And when I press the enter key, I would have this equal to sign and this double quotation mark there. Now, I would paste that link that I copied, the Unsplash image link. I would paste it here. When you paste it, Control S to save. Now, when I go back to my website, this is my website, you'll see that I have the image here. And the image is quite big, like it's really big, and it's taking up the whole width of the page. Now, normally, to solve a, can you hear me now, Farida? Can anyone hear me? Okay. Farida says she can't hear me. Okay. Someone should tell Farida to refresh her browser, I think. I am breaking. Okay. Sorry about that, if I'm breaking. Okay. So, okay then. So now this image is actually too big. Regularly, to make the image look good, you would use CSS. But I might just show you a little trick I won't want you to always use. Actually, don't use it when you are when you want to use it in real life. It's just a little trick for learning. And that little trick is to come here, take note, after the quotation mark that has this link, yeah, that I copied from Unsplash, after the quotation mark, but still inside the img tag. And inside the img tag is still here. Like you can see, this is the / and the greater than sign that closes the img tag. So while still inside the img tag, I can throw in a height property, and I can just set this to 120. When I Control S to save, you would see that the image is smaller now. Now, like I said, in an ideal environment, you would use CSS to resize your images. I am just doing this because we are just learning, and I don't want this image to take up our whole screen and mess up the whole flow. So with that alone, I have been able to set the height of the image to 120. Now, there is another attribute. There is another image attribute I would like to talk about. And that attribute, someone is saying I can just see the image icon. Okay. And that image, the image attribute, this is the image here. I hope everyone can see the image now. Okay, if you can see the image icon in your own computer, then it's your network. Your network is finding it hard to connect to the Unsplash network. Meryl says, is there a way to change the font size? Yes, there is. We are going to see how to do that in CSS in just some minutes. Let's get done with the basics of HTML now. So there is another attribute, another image attribute in HTML I'd like us to talk about, and that's the alt attribute. Now take note, whenever you want to type in a new attribute in a tag, give some space. This attribute is called the alt attribute, ALT. When you type that in, press the tab key or press the enter key on your keyboard, and you'd have the equal to sign with this quotation mark show up. Now, this alt attribute is used to pass in a description for the message. And this description will only show up when your website is being loaded or when your website is being viewed in a location that the network is really bad to the extent that it is unable to load the message that is on the image that is on the website. So let's say I say my main image, just type in any text there in between the quotation marks. When I say my main image and I come to the website, you would see that the my main image is not showing up here because the image is showing currently, yeah? But I'm here now. This, the whole SRC, if I take out the link and I save, you'll see that as long as my browser cannot locate an image to display, what my browser will do is to just show the alt value, which is my main image. Now, in real life, what you do here is in an alt value that can display the image you had on the website. This is like UX for accessibility. So I can come here and say, if what I had there was, say, map of Nigeria. So if someone that's viewing this website country or in a nation where the internet connection is really bad and is unable to load the image, what's going to happen is you won't see the image. What the person is going to see is this little icon and map of Nigeria. Now, this is going to give the person a clue that, oh, the image that is not loading here is actually the map of the person. Will just say, okay, that's not even necessary. And back then when network wasn't really as accessible as it is now, many people used to actually browsers not to load images so that they don't hold bandwidth and their bandwidth. And so using that alt tag can really be helpful. Yes, pointed out something that I gave the image a height and it affected the width. Yes, in HTML, if I just apply the height property, when it is resizing it, it will resize it like using the scale tool in Figma. It will scale it down to that height while affecting the width. It's relatable like in Figma. Like if I come here in Figma and I create a rectangle here and I rectangle, if I come here and I use the scale tool, if I try to resize the height, watch, you see that, yeah? If I increase the height with the scale tool, the width also. So passing in that height attribute here, when HTML is applying it, it will also scale the width down with it. So okay, so that's the main reason I say use the height property in real life. You might just want only the height and not the width. So when you want to do that, you will use CSS to do that. This is actually not the best advice out to anyone. Use this only when you want to. Most times, I would advise you to use CSS. So far, we have been able to build static, basic, ugly website from this point to this point. I'm left with building a sign-up form with HTML. I'd just like to ask, are there any questions or is everyone clear? Before seen how to build a form, actually, we didn't cover that yesterday. So I would like to, if I can proceed. Okay, I haven't seen replies from. All right then. So I would like us to proceed with a form in HTML. About your image is not showing up, okay? If your image is not showing up, look at the way you can take note of the quotation marks. Make sure the link you are the quotation marks. Take note of that very well. Then if you take note of that and the image is not showing up, then you can also say that in the chat box. So the next thing we are going to build is a HTML form. Now we need to create a title first, which is sign up form. We just need to create. After the title, then we create our form. So I would come here to create that title. I would use the H3 tag. You can use H4 or any heading tag. And I would form, just like this. Now, if I come here, see that I have sign up form showing up here. Now, this sign up form is like the title of my form here. After that, I would create this form that will have the username, full name, and password. And we are going to create the password field to actually accept only password characters, which means it won't be displayed in row. So I would come here. Under the H3 tag, I would create a form. And to create is pretty easy. Very easy. Type in form in your VS Code. When you type in form, press tab key on your keyboard or the enter key, the tab key. My form tag will be created. Now, this is what you should do. This is the form tag. Take note. This is an attribute for the form tag. It's called the action attribute. It has a quotation mark there, nothing inside of it, value. For now, don't put any value there. Just come here in between the tag and the closing form and the closing form tag. Yeah. Come here, put your mouse cursor in between the two tags and press your enter key so that the opening form tag will stay on this line and the closing form tag stay on this line. Now it is in between this opening form tag and the closing form tag that we will create. Now just look at this like when we were creating with the unordered list tag here. What we did first of all was to create an unordered list. Then we needed to add items to the unordered list. Just like how I said today, if you have a list, then it means you have a blank paper. You have a blank sheet of paper. Before you call a list, it must have list items. Now, if you have a form is not a form until you have form fields. Now, how do we create those? We need to create form fields that can actually collect data, because that's the purpose of having a form. You create a form so that you can collect data from the user of your website. That's the reason you create a form. So I hope everyone is still hearing me. Is everyone still hearing me? Okay. Peter, if you created an ordered list, I didn't create an ordered list. I created an unordered list. I used the UL. Bullet points are for unordered list only. Okay then, so when you create a form, you need to have form fields. Now these are form fields. This here is a form field and it is an input field. This is an input form field, this. And the reason it is called an input form field is because when you create it on your website, you are actually requesting users to input data. In this case, I want the users to input their username. In this case, input their full name and input their password. So that's why it is called an input field. And form fields are actually input fields. Like when you create a form, your purpose is to collect data, and that data must be imputed or must be input by the user of your website. So how do we create these input fields? In this form that we have created. Now, if I come to my browser, you would see that I just have sign up form here. There is no input field. there is no form showing up. I have created the form in VS Code, but no form is showing up here because there is no input field. So I have to create an input field. Now, to create an input field, we need to create a label first. As you can see, there's enter username here. And actually, I would like to have a placeholder here. I think this is UI designers will understand this better. I would create enter username there, and I would give it a lighter color to make it look faint. Then I would come here. I'll duplicate this. I'll make this look faint also. Then I would create this to make it look faint, just so that everyone is going to follow clearly. Just like that. So what we have here is called a label. This enter username that is at the top is called a label. This one here is called a placeholder. This is a label. This is a placeholder. And this in general is the input field. So sometimes you can hear some advice given by some people that says when you are creating a form, it is not necessary to have a label. Sometimes you have some applications or some websites that just have placeholders only. But I think to design for everybody in general, sometimes you can choose to have a label and the placeholder text there. So I believe, yes, form field. It's form field, yeah. So form field, let me type that in. You have typed it in, so that's form field. So we are going to see how to create a label for form field. Now, this label belongs to this form field. This one belongs to this. This one belongs to this. So let's create this. So I would come here. To create a label, you just type in label and press the tab key on your keyboard, just like this. Now, when you create a label, in between the opening label tag and the closing label tag, you can just go there and type in whatever you want to type. You can say enter username. Come here to the browser, you'll see that I have a label here that says enter username. And that's cool. That's cool. Now, if I want to create a form field, I would come here under label, I would say input. Remember, it is an input field. We want users to input data to us. So when I type in input, I would have the input tag show up. Now, this is the input tag. It's a self-closing tag. There is no opening input tag and a closing input tag. It's just input. Now, we have an attribute here that is called the type attribute. This type attribute is basically asking you, what type of data do you want to collect from the user? In this case, I want to collect I want to collect a username or the username from the user. And usernames are always text. Like it can be a number, it can be a letter, it can be characters or whatever. Now I can call all of that text. So what I'll do is I would come here, I would keep the type value set to text. So when the user comes to the browser, the user will be able to enter a text data to the input field. Let's save this and let's go to our browser. You would see that an input field has been created here. This is it. Is everyone following? I hope I'm not going too fast. Okay. So, okay, I'll go one more time. So you can see that I created the label first and I created the form field. Now my form field is an input form field because I want the users to input data. And the type of data I want them to input is the text data. Now, if I come here to my browser, you'll see that if I type inside this form field, I can start typing whatever I want to type inside the form field. It's as easy as that. Now, let's come back here. You see that we have been able to create the label and the field, but we have not been able to create the placeholder. So how do we create the placeholder? It's simple. The placeholder will be another attribute. So after this text attribute after this type attribute that is set to text, I would come here, I would create some space after this type attribute, still inside the input tag. I would create some space and I would create the placeholder attribute. Just type in placeholder and press the enter key on your keyboard and the placeholder attribute will be created. Now you will type in the placeholder you want to have there. In my case, I would say enter username. And I would save that. When I save that and I go back to my browser, you will see that I have the placeholder here that says enter username. Now you'll see that when I start typing, the placeholder will disappear. So that's how to create an input field in HTML. What makes that different from the name or ID attribute? Okay, the name or ID attribute is used for, let's say, data binding. I am also going to get to that. Like when you want to build a functional form, you can use the name attribute to build a fully functional form, actually. A form that you can use to actually collect data, link data, and all of that. That's what the name attribute is. The name and the ID attribute is actually used for. Now, someone is saying, what if you want the form field another line just below the label? Now, you can do that with CSS, but I'll show you how to do that with HTML with the break tag. Now, Victoria says I should go through the input part again. I'll definitely do that now. And Princess Faith is saying, yes, but I still don't understand this for. Great, I think I missed that. Now, this for here, I can use this for to link this label to this input tag. Now, to do that, what I'll do is I'll first of all come here, I'll give a name property, like I'll give a name attribute to this input field. Now, remember, this input field is meant to collect username. So the name of this input field will be username. The name attribute will have a value of username. Now, for this label tag, for the for here, I'll just set this to username. Now, in case this is beginning to sound complex, don't even think about it like it is complex. I'm using this for attributes to tie this label tag to this input tag here. And I'm trying to make this as basic as possible, as very basic as possible, not to sound really technical. So I hope that's clear. But since this is a basic lesson, I was not even looking to go into the for attribute and the name or ID attribute. I just wanted to show you how to create an input field. So what I'd like to do now is to ask if that was clear. Einstein says the input yes, the input field is a self-closing tag. Yeah, it is a self-closing tag. So popular, can you tell me where you don't understand so that I can just go over it once more? Okay, if there are any questions, you can ask. If there are any questions, anyone can ask. Actually, this is just the basic HTML that we are going to look at. Then we are going to look at the container part of HTML before we go into CSS today. Okay, the name tag actually is just like you giving this input here a name. Remember, this input tag here, I created it to collect the username from the users. So I am using this name tag to name this input tag. I am using this name attribute. Sorry, I am using the name attribute here to name this input tag as the input tag meant for collecting username. So if any developer comes to this code, or if the browser sees this code, the browser will know that this input tag is the input tag for username. This is just like you naming something. It's as simple as that. So when you name this input tag to be the username input tag, there is need to also tie this label to this input, because this label is meant for this input. So to tie this label for this input, this is just like me saying this label is for the input tag that has a name of username. Is that clear now? Popular, is that clear now? Okay, yeah. Okay, now for the form field, what effect will it have when displayed? Okay, this won't have any effect when displayed basically, but it's going to have a technical effect. What if you don't name it? When you are, like I said, when you are building a fully functional form, it will be necessary to name it, because you will collect data from that form field to the database based on the name of the input field. Like if you don't know like you can use the name of this input field to collect data from this input field to the database. So that's why it is important to give every input field a name, so that when you are trying to collect data from the front end to the back end, you can use this name. It's just like you identifying something, because on a form you can have more than one input field. Like as you can see here, we have 3. So it is necessary for all of them to have names that you can use to identify them when you want to collect data from all of them. So is that clear? Yes, that's actually a guide for the engineer. Yes, Brianna, that's correct. So can we proceed? Okay, then. I'm glad everyone is following. Now, there is a question I haven't answered, which is, what if you want the form field another line just below the label? It's pretty easy. You do that with CSS. But in HTML, if I want this label to stay on one line and I want this input field to go to another line, I will use the break tag, like to break to another line. And to write the break tag is easy. Just write BR, only BR, less than sign, BR, greater than sign. When I save it and I go back to my browser, you see that the input field has been broken down into this new line. So I have enter username here and I have the input field here. So you can use the break tag to do that, but I think it's more designly, or will I say it is more professional to do that with CSS. You can do that with so many elements or with so many properties in CSS. So I hope that's clear. I can now proceed to create the next field. So the next field I would like us to create is the enter full name field. So I would come here. I can just copy this. You can just copy. That's why sometimes you hear people joke on Twitter that coding is copying and pasting. Sometimes it's Googling. And as you can see, I have just Googled, like I have just shown you guys how to Google for tags. And as you can see, I have been copying and pasting so far. So coding is basically copying and pasting, but just know what to copy and know what to paste. Now, this label here, I'd like it to be for the full name. So I would come here. I'll change this to full name. I won't give a space. I'll just say full name. Now I'll come here. I'll change the label value to enter full name, and for the input type, for the type attribute, I would want the full name to be a text, because obviously people's names are not special characters. They are in text. So I'll keep that in text. For the placeholder, I'll change the value here to enter full name. And for the name of this input tag, I'll change this from username to full name. Now, I want you guys to be careful with how you use uppercase letters and lowercase letters. If you take notes, for this type attribute, the text does not have an uppercase letter, and the name attribute does not have an uppercase letter in its value. So take note, you can put uppercase for things like this and placeholders, but for attributes like type and name, it is professional to keep all of them in lowercase actually. Most times, everything should be in lowercase till you are asked to put them in uppercase. You keep most things in lowercase first. So let's save this. Let's go to our browser and let's see what we have. You can see that I have enter full name here on this line, and I have the field here. The reason it is on this line is because there is no break tag after enter username here. So I would come here after the enter username tag, I would pass in the break tag. When I save that, you will see that I have this enter username, and I have the field, enter full name, and I have the field. So is that clear so far? Are there questions? Is anything confusing? Okay then, so that was cool. Emmanuel, you can just tell me what you have missed. Is that clear to everyone? Can I proceed? Okay, Nancy says it's clear. Okay then, so now I would just like to let you know that professionally, sometimes some people create labels and put their input tags in between their labels. Sometimes some people don't do that, but that's not something to worry about at all. Label tags, I used to just know that label tags, I used to create label text, and you use the for attribute to tie a label tag to an input field. Just know that that is basic. Now let's create a form field for the password. Now you'd see that if I come here, if I want to type in my username, I'm sorry, this is really tiny. I'm sure not everyone is seeing clearly. I would like to zoom in, and I would like to zoom in so that everyone can see clearly. So is this clear? Okay, so you'd see that if I want to type in the username now, I can say Joseph, and it's going to appear as text. I can say Joseph123. It's going to appear clearly for everyone to see, and that's how websites are. If I want to type in my full name, I can say Joseph, and it's going to appear clearly. Now, it is normal that when you are building a website, when you want the user to type in their password, it is normal that the password won't be displayed in plain text, because that's a security risk. So how do we do that? So let's create a password. So I would copy this and I would paste it. It's still copying and pasting. So for the label here, I'll change this to password. Enter password here. I'll change this to enter password. And don't forget to have a break tag here so that this goes to a new line. The password goes to a new line. Now for the input type, this is not going to be set to text. As you can see, the type here is set to text. I'll change this from text to password. When I change it to password, I would come here, I'll change the placeholder value from enter full name to enter password. Then I'll change the name here from full name password, and I'll save that. Now, when I save it and I go back to my browser, you would see that I have a password field. And when I type in the password field, it's going to be hidden. Like it won't be displayed in plain text. And this is possible because I set the value of the type attribute to password. If I change it to text now, you'd see that it will be changed to text. I will be able to come here. When I type, it will be displayed in plain text. But if I come here and I change it let's say I change it to password. It displayed like this. Now, I'd like us to change this full name here to email. So let's come here, let's change this to email. That's so that if you want to collect the email address from users. So I'll change that to enter email. Then I'll change the type value here. I'll change it from text to email. And I'll change this from enter full name to enter email. Then I'll change the name from full name to email. When I save that, it will be updated here as email. Now, this is what's going to happen. If the user types in what is not an email, the user will be unable to submit that form because the user will be expected to type in an email address. So, is that clear? Nancy is saying, why are my content laid out in a flex row and the code is the same? Okay, you are saying, what if you want the user to see the password? Like, if you want the user to have an icon here where when they type in the password, they click on it to see the password here before it goes hidden again, then you are going to add that. Actually, that is something you add to your password field, but you won't create your password field to display the password by default. You will create it to hide the password by default. Then you would enable the user to actually click on that icon to see the password briefly to be sure that, yeah, they typed in the correct data. Then you can just pass that. So is that clear? Popular. Okay, someone is saying, why is there no space between the form fields? Yes, like I said before now, spacing has to do with CSS. That is margin, padding, and all of that. Currently, what we are building is just raw and ugly HTML structure. Like there is no beauty attached to it. As you can see, this is how it is. Back then, I think there was some time in 2003, 2004, where you had websites looking like this. You might go to a website and it looks like this, just like this. So CSS made everything look really cool now. So I hope that's clear. Okay, someone is saying, since types are already predefined in HTML, is there a way to view all possible types for a text without input saying you don't, without inputting, say, password? Is there a way to view all the possible type? Okay, I don't understand the question, but I think, like I said, you can always Google. If you go to Google, you can say input types in HTML. You just see one website. There must be one website or one article that's going to show you all of the input types. You can see the different types you have here. Type button, type checkbox, type color, type dates. You can see all of this. Like these are types. You can use anyone when you need to use them. So it's really easy. It's really easy. You don't have to stress yourself about it. I don't know why my input tags are horizontal, not vertical. It's horizontal because you are not using this break tag. I mentioned these break tags earlier. These break tags, and don't bother yourself if it's horizontal. The most important thing is that you have created a form field. Now let's proceed. If you come here, you would see that there is a sign up button, and that is actually really important. Every form must have a button, because when the users type in their details, the next thing will be for the users to send the details. That will be the next thing, to send the details to your database. So there is always need for a button, like a send button or a submit button or a sign up button, a login button. Whichever button is always necessary. So that button will be created inside the form also. Take note, we are still inside the form. This is the opening form tag and this is the closing form tag. All of these here are inside the form that we created. And so will the button be also. This button will be inside the form. And we know how to create a button. Just create a button tag, then create the button text. In this case, I would say sign up. When I save that and I go back to my browser, you see that I have the sign up button here. And for the sign up button to stay vertically, you'd use the break tag, but that's not necessary in this case. So what I have here is I have a sign up form that can collect the username, email, but it's not looking beautiful. Before I proceed to the next topic, I hope building this whole page was really clear to everyone. Building this whole page was really clear to everyone using HTML. If that was clear, just say yes in the chat box so that we can proceed. If you have questions, say it in the chat box so that I can see the questions and respond to the questions. Okay, I just have few people saying, can I find the link path on computer in VS Code? Marisa, I think you need to explain better. I'm just kind of, I don't understand that. Can I find the link path on computer? Okay, there you can't find it. You'd have to create it in VS Code. I think I now understand what you mean. You'd have to create it in VS Code just the same way I created it yesterday. I think it's the // and all of that, yeah? You'd have to create it by yourself in VS Code. So I haven't seen any response from some of the people. So I just believe everyone is following quite all right. So let's go on. Now, what we are going to talk about currently. Yes, I mentioned how to install live server. What was the submit button? Yes, you can get all the type from W3 School. You can also check what they call this documentation created by Mozilla Firefox. You can also get all of the types there. All of these things are available online for free. All you have to do is use your Google. That's all. So what we are going to look at next in HTML is containers. Now, this is a really important topic. It's really important. It is your ability to make your website look better or to structure your website better depends on your understanding of what containers are. So we are going to look at containers in HTML, and containers in HTML are created with container tags. And there are different container tags in HTML. We have div, sorry about that, I wasn't supposed to create that. We have divs, we have sections, we have main, header, nav, and all of that. But the most popular container tag that you will use is the div container tag. And if you always look out on Twitter, you would always see some developer jokes that always says front-end developers can't center a div. So this is that div that they always talk about on Twitter. So div is the most popular container tag out there. You can use container tags to properly structure your website and design it to look really good. The power actually of making your website look really good depends on how you create your div tag, or depends on how you use the div tags to create different containers on the website. Let's go to Figma. we will get, yes, you will get that popular. So let's go to Figma, yeah? Let's see what containers are. Now, just understand that containers that you know in Figma is still the same concept with HTML and CSS. That's why I always say design and development is purely relative. They were all built on the same principles. So in Figma, a container is a layout or an auto layout that contains other elements. Like this layout now, if I have a triangle inside this layout becomes a container to this triangle. You get it, right? Now, if I create another container inside this layout, like if I create another frame inside this layout, and let's add a color to this frame. Let's make it like this. Now, this is a frame layout. This is a frame layout, but this frame layout is inside this frame layout, yeah? Now, if you were following in the class, I mentioned that layouts are containers. Like in Figma, layouts are containers. Containers are layouts. So this frame 5 is a container to this layout called frame 6. Now, this frame 6 is a child or is an element in this frame 5 container. You can call it a child. Now, if I create another container inside this container and I give it this color, now I have 3 containers. This container, and this one here. Now, this one is inside this one, which is inside this one. So this blue container, or can I say purple? I don't know if it's purple, but this blue container is the direct child of this frame 5 container, because it is the first container that you will meet when you go inside frame 5. You will meet this first before you meet this. So this one is the direct child of this blue container, is the direct child of the white frame 5 container, while this white container, this white frame inside, is the direct child of this blue container. So I hope you guys can understand how containers are. So containers are any element that can contain other elements inside of them. That's what containers are. And the importance of building a website. Let's open a website. Let's go to GitHub. Now, this website that you see here was designed and built with the concept of containers. Now, the web developer that will build the front end of this website, this is how the web developer is going to do it. The web developer will create a container here at the top. And inside the container at the top, the web developer will create another container inside that container that will contain these items. Then create another container on the right side that will contain these items. Now, when the web developer comes here, the web developer will create this whole section as one container. Then that container into 2 and have 2 smaller containers. Now, to make this really standable, let me just demonstrate how it will look like in Figma. So let's say the developer is trying to build that website here, and this is the layout. What the developer will do is this. The developer will create a container first at the top. Let's create that. Use the frame to create a container at the top. Now, this container, give it this color. This container will contain these items, yeah? So to properly fix these items, the developer will create another container inside that container that will contain all of these. Let's do that. The developer will come here and create another container here inside this container. Let's give this a color. Now, this container here will be the container that will contain all of these items. And the developer will create another container here. That will contain these items. Now, to create this section of the website, this is what the developer will do. The developer will use the div tag. Remember, I say this div tags is the most popular tag that is used to create containers in HTML. So the developer will use another div tag, create another container that will be as big as this. Now let's change the color of this one to something different. Now, this container that the developer has created will now be divided into two, so that you can use one section on the left side to put all of this content and use one section to put this image that is animating. So this is what the developer will do. The developer will use the div tag again to create another container here on the left side, then use the div tag to create another container here on the right side, so that this container on the left side will contain all of these elements, and this container on the right side will contain all of these elements. Now, when the developer structures the websites like this, by using the div tag to create those containers, the developer can start putting content inside. Put content here, put content here. Now, you can see that this is actually easier to properly structure the website. The developer can actually, if the developer has to apply effect or has to apply any effect to any part of the website, what the developer will do first of all is to identify which container that element is inside of. When you are able to identify the container and say, okay, that item is inside this container, you will come to this container and apply changes. Now, if I change the color of this container, you will see that it is affecting only this container. The other regions of the website are the way they are. So I can use this containerization method to actually break down the website into smaller bits so that I can troubleshoot better, I can design better, and I can actually express myself better while developing the website. That's why it is always important also as a designer to build or to develop or to design your websites in bits, in components, so that when you have any issues, you attend to the components by themselves, not the whole website itself, or not the whole design itself. Is that explanation really clear? Someone says my voice is breaking up. Oh God, I think it's two people. Did you guys hear me actually? Okay, it's clear. So did it break up to the point where you didn't get what I was saying? Okay, then. So this is how websites are being built from scratch, actually. And it is only when you build your website in containers like this that you will be able to design better as a front-end developer, and you'll be able to build better. Now, if let's say I want to have this text inside this container here, what I will do again as a developer to make my job easier, I would come inside this container and create another container. Now, I would create this new container just so that I can use it to have this text, because as you can see, this text is designed different from these other ones here. So I might decide to create one container for this. I might decide to create another sub container for this. I might decide to create another sub container for all of this. So websites are containers inside containers inside containers. That's what a website is. A website is a large container that has other containers inside all of it. It is only when you put these elements in containers that you can properly design and build what you want to build perfectly. So I hope that's clear. Let's proceed and let's see how we can create containers with the div tag. Let's see how we can create containers with the div tag. Yes, someone just said, are these containers the same as auto layout? Yes, they are actually. They are. That's why as a designer, when you want to create a container, like if I come here, if I go to my, as asset panel, I think I have some layout, some auto layout components that I created. Now, this is a component. It is a container that has all of these items inside all of it. I can expand it. I can reduce it. This also is a container that has these items. Now, I can take this container that has these items and place it on my website. Then I can duplicate it. So you can see that the principle of design is actually the same principle. It's actually the same principle you use in front-end development. Yes, okay. It seems in Figma, okay, as a designer, am I to design this website exactly like this before I present it to the dev? Yes, that's what you do as a designer. You design it. When you design it, then you present it to the developer, and the developer interprets it by building it. Now, this is saying, but it seems in Figma, using the auto layout, you start from the child element to the parents. Yes, you can actually start from child to parents in Figma. That is in Figma. Sometimes you can start from parent to child. There is no clear principle to that. You can actually start from parent to child or from child to parent. Like this here, this is a layout that has all of these children elements inside of it. So it's still the same concept in web design. So now, before I proceed, I would like to point out the reason why companies actually like UI designers to understand how HTML works. Now, it is when you understand how HTML works that you will know that when designing, you should actually put some things here on the left side, put some on the right. Some designs may easily have things crossing over without actually staying on any side. You might have some designers create their nav section in a very unorganized way. They might have one section of items here, one section at the center, and another section on the right side. Now, it may look good, but it's going to be something difficult for the developers. The developers might just look at it like, why do I have to go through all of this headache? Why do I have to go through this trouble just to interpret a basic landing page? That's where you have developers and designers always having issues, and it's back and forth, and you will be forced as the designer. The product manager will kind of make you change the design to suit what the developers actually need. But if you understand these principles as a designer, you will hardly make a design that will be a problem between the design team and the development team. You will hardly make such a mistake actually. So that's why we need to look at this. Now let's go to our VS Code and let's see how we can create containers. Now, to create a container, like I said, you will use the div tag. And how do we use the div tag to create a container? It's simple. Just type in div, press the tab key on your keyboard, then press the enter key on your keyboard to have the opening div tag stay here and the closing div tag stay here. Now, once you do this, you have created a container. It's as simple as this. The div tag, just like this, you have created a container. And that's it. Now, this container is what you will use to be actually placing items in or on your HTML website layout. Now, let's come back to Figma. Let's scroll down to this point. I would select this. And I would have this. I created this earlier on. I used 10 minutes or so to create something like this so that I can explain better. But I think I even forgot that I created something like this. So it just crossed my mind now. Now, this website here, yeah, this website is without a container. We created it, as you can see, we created all of this without containers. Now, this website is this website, but with containers. Now, if I am to create this website with containers. This is how it's going to look like if I am to outline the containers for you to see. I'd have this first container here that contains this blog stuff. I'd have this container that contains this list of countries. I'll have this container that has this image, and I'd have this container here that contains this form. So how many containers do we have here? We have 1 container, 2 container, 3 container, and 4 containers. Now, if I want to containerize all of these elements, how do I do that? Let's go to VS Code and do that with the div tag. Let's delete this div tag here. Let's containerize all our elements. Now, take note, I am inside the body tag. All you do must be inside the body tag. All you do must be inside the body tag. So what I'll do here first is I'll create an opening div tag. At this stage, I want to containerize this section here. I want to containerize this section. So I would create an open div tag. Take note, I would create the opening div tag. Let's take out this closing div tag. That's not where I want to close it. So when I open this div tag, I will have to close it for me to have created a container, right? Now to close it, I would go to where this section ends. Now look at where this section ends. This place is the list of countries. And here the list of countries is inside another container. So I don't want to put this inside my first container. So I would come here. This is where it ends. So under here, I would close that div tag. Now this is the closing div tag, and this is the opening div tag. Now, like I said, when you create an opening and closing div tag, it means you have created a container. Now, all of these items here that are in between the opening and closing div tag are inside a container. Now, to make them look better, you will have to indent your code. Indentation is something important in HTML and CSS or any programming language at all. Indentation makes you read your code better. Like, as you can see here, if I come here, you'll see that this is the opening strong P and EM tag, and this is the closing EMP and strong tag. And you can see that the text, which is in between these opening tags and these closing tags, actually has some space before it starts. Now, this makes it clear to me that, yes, this text is actually in between these two tags here, these tags here and these tags here. And as you can see, there is a line that VS Code creates that connects these opening tags and these closing tags. So that's what they call indentation in coding. And to indent your code is pretty easy. Now, I want to indent all the code that is inside or in between this opening div tag and this closing div tag. How will I do that? I would use my mouse to select all of them. Now, take note, select all the relevant ones. When I select everything in between the opening div tag and the closing div tag, I'll then press the tab key on my keyboard. When I press the tab key on my keyboard, it will be indented. And to show you that it is indented, you would see that at this opening div tag, VS Code creates a line that runs down straight to the closing div tag. Now, that is just to show you that this closing div tag belongs to this opening div tag, and everything in between these opening and closing div tag is inside the div tag. And like I mentioned, div tags are containers. So we have perfectly containerized this first section here. Are there questions? Oh God, okay. People are not hearing me clearly. I think, okay, sorry for that. I think I had a text message. Can you hear me clearly now? Peter, Christian, can you hear me clearly now? Okay, Peter can't hear me clearly. Okay. Okay. All right. So all I have been explaining, has it been clear? I have been able to put all of these elements inside a div container. That's it. So if I come here, I would say that this section has been containerized. Is that clear? Okay, so we can go on and containerize the other sections. Very easy. Let's containerize this list of countries section. So I'll come here. This is the list of countries section. What I'll do is I'll create an opening div tag here. I'll create an opening div tag there, and this is where the list of countries ends here. Then I would create a closing div tag. Now I would select everything inside or in between the div tags, and I would press the tab key to properly indent it, just like this. So that's it. So I have properly containerized this section also. So let's containerize the image section. This is the image section here. This is just the image title and the image tag. Let's containerize it. So I would create an opening div tag, and I would create a closing div tag. And let's create some space. I would create a closing div tag, and I would select all of the items or the elements inside the opening and closing div tag, and I would press the tab key to properly indent it to have this. So I have containerized that section. Now let's containerize our form section, which is the last section that we have on our website. So I would create an opening div tag, and I would come here at the bottom and I would create a closing div tag. Sorry for that. I would create a closing div tag. Now I would select everything that is in between the opening div tag and the closing div tag, and I would press the tab key to properly indent it, and that's it. So far, we have properly containerized all our elements. So yes, Einstein said some of the indentations are done by VS Code by default. That's true. Victoria is saying, what if you selected some parts that shouldn't be in the same container? How do you undo? You undo with Control Z in HTML, just like regular Microsoft Word, it's Control Z. And that's actually going to be sorted. You Control Z, or you manually go and arrange the items to be the way you would want them to be. Are not showing on my live server. Yeah, the containers won't show actually. Like as you can see, it's not showing here. Now, to container elements is so that it's a technical decision. It is not a decision that is seen on the front end. It is an engineering decision. Let's say a design decision in HTML and CSS. Like on this website, the developers develop the website with containers, but you can't see them showing up here. Like you won't see it showing up here. All of these were built with containers. That's why you see every element or every content has its own section. It stays on its own place. Everything is placed to stay on their own section. This is one section, this is one section, which means this is one container, this is one container. So you can see this is one container, this is one container. This is one container that has all of this. This is one container that has all of this. So that's how websites are developed in general. It's always containerized, but in the browser, definitely you won't see it. Definitely you won't see it. So there is something I want to also demonstrate to everyone, which is comments. Now, when you are building, most times, when you are writing code, sometimes you might be writing with other people, or sometimes when you write, you might be sleeping because maybe you were writing the code at night and you were actually sleeping while writing, or maybe you were just out of touch because of stress or something. Now, when you come back in the morning, you might look at the code and be like, what did I do here? What did I do there? Or what's here or what's there? Or sometimes somebody else might want to continue from where you stopped, and the person might be confused on what you did. Trying to read the code might be difficult. Now, to make that easy, there is something called comments in HTML. Now, writing comments is easy. Now, if I want to write comment, now this section, this container section is for the blog section, right? If I want to write a comment in HTML, I would press down my control key. If you're using a Mac, it's your command key. I would press down the control key on my keyboard, and I would press the / key on my keyboard. When I press control and / I would have comment tag show up. Now I can pass in a comment here that can describe what I am doing. I would say this section is actually meant for the blog. Don't delete it when you are writing this section for the latest news. So I can pass in this comment here for this section. If a developer or if anybody comes to this HTML code, the person will see that actually, oh, this section is meant for blogs. Yeah, okay, I won't delete this section. Now I can come down here and say, I can pass in a comment here also. Let's create some space. I can pass in a comment here that says, sorry. I can pass in a comment here that says, the blog section ends here. You can start writing the other code from this point. Something like that. Now, this comment won't be visible on the website. As you can see, it's not showing up here. Comments don't show up on websites. Comments are for developers or for designers to see and understand what they are doing. That's what comments are used for. Now, I have been able to describe that this section is for the blog, and I've been able to also let the person know that this blog section ends here. Now, after this section, the person can start writing. Now, I can come here and say, okay, I would say I don't have the full list of countries. Please enter all of them for me, if you have them. That's it. Or I can just say, I don't have the full list of countries. I'll do this tomorrow, just to remind myself. Now you can pass in comments anywhere in your code, and that's going to be fine. So I'd just like to ask if that was clear. So someone is saying, can someone please type the command to write a comment? Now the command to write a comment is control and /. Hold down the control key and press the /. Yeah, hold down the control key and press the /. If you are using a Mac, it's the command key and the /. So I hope that was clear. So we can proceed to CSS now. Let's see how we can get started with CSS, because we have actually covered enough basics in HTML for UI UX designers. Now you can add HTML to your resume. Since you understand how this works, you can add HTML to your resume, so that when you are putting out your resume out there, the developer will understand that the company will understand that you understand HTML. Now to clarify, inputting comments is, yes, control and /. Yeah, Fascina, that's it. So can we proceed and get started with CSS? Okay, so I would come here in my VS Code, and I'll take out all of my code. Take note, I'm not taking out the body tags. The body tags are still there. I've taken out all of my code. Now, like I said, CSS is used to make your HTML code beautiful. Like if I have a tag here that says beautiful, how is that spelled? B-E-A-U-T-I. I think that's correct. Okay, beautiful. Now, if I have this text that says beautiful, you can see that here in my browser, I have the text that says beautiful. With CSS, I can add to this. I can make it look beautiful, really. Currently, it looks really awful, like it's laughable. So I can use CSS to add colors. I can use CSS to make it look smaller, make it look bigger, or just design it however I want to design it. CSS is the design part of HTML. Let's come back here. I zoomed out initially. I'll take it back to 100, which is how it was. Now how it is. So I would use CSS to change the color of this to any color, and I would use CSS also to change the font family. We can select fine fonts for the website. Now, how do you use CSS? Remember, I said that CSS is used with HTML, which means that you will write the HTML first, then have CSS stay on top of the HTML and work on the HTML. Like CSS will work with the HTML. Now, to do that, what you need to do is to create a CSS file first. And to create a CSS file is just like how we created the HTML file. I will come here still. You can see where my mouse cursor is on. I would click on that new file icon once more. Then I would create a CSS file. Now I would call my CSS file style.css. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but I would call it style.css. When I call it style.css, I would press the enter key and that CSS file will be created. Now, just in case you don't know, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Cascading Style Sheets. I think this was from our last class yesterday. Cascading Style Sheets. That's what CSS stands for. Cascading Style Sheets. It's used to make your HTML look good. So when you create your CSS file, the next thing will be to let your HTML file know that there is a CSS file that has been created for it, because currently our HTML file is not aware that a CSS file has been created for it. The CSS file is independent of the HTML file. So what we need to do next is to link the both of them so that both of them can work hand in hand. Now, to do that, to link the CSS file with the HTML file, you will do that inside this head tag. Now you do that inside the head tag, and the way to do that, you can come here under title, look at the title tag here, come here under title, but make sure you are inside the head tag. As you can see, I am not outside the closing head tag. Now, while you are inside the head tag, you will just type in link. Remember, we are trying to link. You type in link. When you type in link like this, press the tab key on your keyboard. When you do that, you'd have this show up. Now, this link tag is used when you want to link a document to another document. Now, this attribute here called REL is the relationship attribute. Like this attribute, you are using it to say that what type of document am I trying to link to my HTML document? And as you can see, the answer is style sheets. Remember, CSS stands for cascading style sheets. So this is me practically saying I am trying to link a style sheet document to this HTML document. So this relationship attribute is where you define the type of document that you are trying to link to the HTML document, or that you are trying to create a relationship with the HTML document. So it is a style sheet document. Now we have another attribute here called the href attribute. This attribute is where you pass in the location of the document that you are trying to link to the HTML document. Now, the location of our CSS document is right here inside the structure project folder. As you can see, I have style.css here and index.html. So currently our style.css document is inside the structure project folder that I created. So I would come in here in between the quotation marks. I would say // then I would select style.css. Just do that. You don't have to think about it. It's not deep. Just // style.css. This means start from here. / means go to. And where are you going to? Style.css. So with this here, I have successfully linked my CSS file to my HTML file. So I can start writing CSS in this CSS file and use the CSS code here to design or affect any HTML file or any HTML code that I have here. Let me do something quickly. I can come here and say H1 color red. When I go to my browser now, you'll see that this text is now red. So, okay, Breonna, the way to create a CSS file is still the same way we created the HTML file. Click on that create file icon. When you click on it, then type in style.css or anything.css. Now, popular, this ref part, I would advise you that you shouldn't think deep about it. This href part is just where you type in the location of where you have your CSS file. Currently, my CSS file is inside my structure project folder. If I come here and I go to my desktop, if I open my folder, you'll see that this is the CSS file here. So it is inside my structure project folder. That's it. So I am just using the href attribute to locate the CSS file that I want to link to my HTML file. And that's what I have done. So is that clear? Okay, Breonna, the doc type isn't coming up this time. Okay, you can just keep trying. When you create the CSS file, you won't create a doc type inside of it. As you can see, I don't have any doc type here. When you create a CSS file, there is no need to create the doc type document there. Just create style.css and that's it. Just leave it like that. The CSS document does not have the doc type tag. Is that clear? Okay then, so after linking a CSS file to the HTML file, the next thing you will do is to start selecting the HTML element or the HTML tag that you want to design with CSS. Just like in Figma, if I come here and I create a rectangle here, or I have all of these elements, if I want to add color or I want to design any of them, what do? I select first, right? I would come here, select it, then change the color. It's the same logic in HTML and CSS. Whenever you create a tag in HTML, you can have 100 tags. Like you saw before now, we had many tags. For you to design them, you need to select the tag you want to design first. And to select the tag you want to design, you would select it here in CSS. You will use what is called the CSS selector to select a tag. When you select the tag, then you can design the tag. And there are different types of CSS selectors. I'll just say we have the tag selectors, class selectors, ID selectors. We have about 5 major selectors, and that's going to be our major. Major look at for tomorrow. We are going to understand selectors. Then we are going to style. We are going to style, create colors, edit text, change font families, create spaces, margin spaces, padding spaces. We are going to see how to use gradient colors on designs, design buttons, design forms, and all of that. then we are going to start our project. Now, that's what's going to happen tomorrow, because currently now we are currently out of time. So it's supposed to end by 9 and this is 8:59 over here. So I'd just like to draw the curtain for today, and I'd like to hear from everyone if everything was easily explained in the class today, if everyone really got anything that we say today. You're welcome, Einstein. You're welcome, Abbas. How about others? Yes, Olalekan, we are going to get the class recorded. I think next week the recorded versions will be available on YouTube. It was easy to follow through and understand. Okay, thank you so much, Amirat. Thank you so much, Omotoyosi. Thank you so much, X. Thank you so much, Brianna. How do you remember what tags are self-closing tags and those that require attributes? Now, Brianna, don't think about that much. Just create the tags with the tab key. It's going to self-close itself if it's a self-closing tag. Yeah, it's going to self-close itself. So you don't have to worry about that. And as we get to design more, as we get to build more, you will get to understand the tags that are self-closing tags. There are not much tags actually, just few tags are self-closing tags. Many other tags are actually opening and closing tags. So you won't have to worry yourself about that. So see you guys tomorrow, same time tomorrow. We are definitely going to get to the point where we will build our project. So same time tomorrow. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.